Finally, a way to end the Mamushi invasion arc has been revealed. A method we might never have imagined. It's actually turned out to be a pretty interesting plot twist. Yeah, that's at least what we'll be discussing over the next few minutes as we try to guess how the Mamushi invasion will end in the next chapter, now that the situation has shifted from optimistic to pessimistic. So yeah, first and foremost, when talking about how this invasion will end, we're guessing that Boruto, with Momoshiki's power, will take charge and fight against Mamushi, who has already reached 1,000 and is still growing, right? And of course, aside from Boruto, we still have a character with massive potential, someone we really shouldn't underestimate or overlook. Yeah, it's Himawari. Her potential, in my opinion, is genuinely interesting and strong enough to stand alongside Boruto. Himawari's presence should always be maintained because she deserves to keep shining in the story. And it's not just because she's Boruto's younger sister, there's something much deeper going on with her. She's the successor to Kurama, but what makes it even more intriguing is that she's no longer just an ordinary Jinchuriki. According to Jura, she possesses something almost like what the Biju themselves have, and honestly, that alone already puts her in a completely different level. But getting back to the original context, regarding the fact that Mamushi has reached an unimaginable number, I don't think we can simply doubt or even underestimate the possibility that Boruto, or even Himawari, might take over, right? Because in reality, that's the most plausible explanation so far. But believe it or not, Ikemoto always employs methods we've never even imagined before. He's an author who has truly transformed the quality of the Boruto story, bringing about such significant changes. And once again, from chapter 31 to chapter 32, that's enough to prove how perfectly and thrillingly Ikemoto writes the story, especially the drama amidst the operation against Mamushi's invasion. I mean, in a single moment and within one chapter, he created an intense scene filled with optimism that ended in a tragically pessimistic way. I know this might sound a bit over the top, but yeah, that's just how it is. And still on the topic of how Ikemoto crafts a plot twist. If you still remember the video I posted a few weeks or even a month ago, I had already predicted how Ikemoto would create an intriguing scenario where Mamushi gets Ida, or vice versa. And one of the things I meant was using Ada as bait. And yep, that actually happened. But of course, in that scenario, I didn't just predict that Ida would be used as bait. Rather, I also predicted the final possibility as an alternative. In other words, if Ida were to actually be devoured by Mamushi, that would certainly be a terrible and horrific ending, right? And instead of avoiding that worst case scenario after using Ida as bait, I also predict that Kawaki might make a pretty tough decision by sealing Ida inside the Daikokuten dimension, just like what Kawaki did to Naruto and Hinata. But at least those are the 2 points we've predicted over the past few weeks or months. And the point I actually want to make is, what if Ikemoto tries an alternative we've never even imagined before? It won't be Boruto and Himawari who end this invasion, let alone Kawaki and Sarada. Rather, it'll be a genius decision from Shikamaru himself. How to defeat over 1,000 Mamushi with Sarada and Kawaki already out of chakra? What if a far more intriguing idea is that Shikamaru, or even Kashin Koji, will devise a plan to trick Mamushi through Ida, and that is to exploit their stupidity. After all, their numbers are truly massive right now, and the more they split their bodies, the dumber they become and the easier they are to provoke, right? So, in conclusion, Kashin Koji will likely provide information or a strategy to Shikamaru Nara to play more cleverly. The method used isn't direct force, but rather using Ida as a tool to make a speech, or more precisely, to create a sort of open challenge or contest. Instead of facing the situation head-on, or simply giving up, they'll use an idea that's pretty genius. The idea is to create a game or new rule for Mamushi, that only one Mamushi is entitled to the Ida. In other words, all the Mamushi are forced to fight each other to become the sole survivor. This will create internal conflict among them, without requiring direct intervention from Boruto's side from the start. Because judging from recent chapters, they truly look like idiots when fighting each other, even though their goal is the same. But since they're all genuine, none of them think the outcome will be the same. Instead, they assume each of them must compete to achieve it, right? So through that process, sooner or later, the number of Mamushi will continue to decrease, from thousands to hundreds to tens, and even just a dozen. And if eventually only a fraction of the Mamushi remain, at that point, those who are left will be eliminated by Daemon or Boruto much more easily. Because believe me, even though this might sound like a ridiculous idea, that's just how Ikemoto works. We shouldn't be surprised, because in recent cases, there have been so many plot twists we never even imagined before, right? And as a disclaimer, we certainly can't be sure if this scenario is likely to unfold from chapter 33 through the middle of chapter 34. But at the very least, there will be a fairly lengthy and strategic build-up to Mamushi's internal conflict. Because in my opinion, to counter stupidity, it's not just about strength. Rather, it's about genius. At this point, I think Mamushi is truly in a position where he's very easily provoked because his genius, or even his intelligence, has drastically declined. Stupidity will completely take over them. So that's the only path that's interesting enough if it ultimately turns out to be true. And in this case as well, I have a follow-up idea, or a prediction that might be quite interesting as the next scenario. In short, if this ultimately happens and Mamushi loses, just as the Mamushi Togodama has formed and been successfully taken by Boruto, the situation suddenly changes drastically. Jura and Hidari appear out of nowhere, opening the door to the next major conflict. Or even more interestingly, it would be the perfect time for Code to make an appearance. And as a final conclusion, Mamushi's invasion will most likely not be resolved in the way we initially imagined. Not through a brutal battle relying solely on the full power of Boruto and Momoshiki, or the immense potential of Himawari Uzumaki alone. Instead, the key to it all likely lies in strategy and plot twists. Through Kashin Koji's direction or Shikamaru Nara's ingenuity, Mamushi will be trapped by using Ada as the center of the conflict. A contest scenario is created, forcing them to fight each other to become the sole one entitled to Ida. And that is where the victory lies. Not by directly defeating thousands of enemies, but by making them destroy themselves. Their sheer numbers actually become a weakness, because the more they split their bodies, the lower their intelligence and awareness become, until eventually they're easily provoked and controlled. But once again, I'm not claiming this is 100% certain. But if we consider all aspects and look at the various perspectives that have already unfolded, how Ikemoto always concludes each arc with unexpected twists, leaving us hanging with curiosity and questions, well, that's what makes it so intriguing. But let's say that doesn't happen and the contest doesn't come to fruition. In your opinion, is there a method that's far more logical and exciting than relying on a power-based battle? Whatever your answer is, I'd love to hear it. Oh yeah, if I may ask for your help, I'd be happy if you could help me subscribe to my other channel or help me mention Team YouTube in my Twitter posts. Thanks for watching. I'm Nim without the E. See you in the next video. Bye bye. Data Bayo.